What is up, Packers Nation? Welcome in to our live pregame show right here on the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you guys a ton. Should be a fun/interesting game tonight in Green Bay against Baltimore. Green Bay, obviously, no Jordan Love. Lamar Jackson not expected to play. Still has not been ruled out officially at this point in time, but doubtful to play. There was a report that if he's good to go, he is in Green Bay and could potentially play. But Tyler Huntley, the expected starter for Baltimore. Both of these teams have things to play for, although both of them are a little bit far-fetched, so to speak. Green Bay can still win the division, but they need 2 wins, 2 Bears losses. Green Bay technically can still get the 2, the 3, the 5, or the 6 seed, as we talked about this week. They're most likely to get the 7th seed. So there's stuff that's on the line for Green Bay, but the biggest thing is that they already clinched a playoff berth, and they're probably going to end up being the 7 seed. And for Baltimore, technically still alive in the playoff race, but they need a ton of stuff to break their way. That doesn't look super feasible, specifically with the Steelers having to lose to the Browns tomorrow. But they're technically still alive and need a win to stay alive. We'll see what that amounts to in this game, but should be, like I said, a fun one either way, even if it's Tyler Huntley and Malik Willis. If you're getting a battle of backup quarterbacks this late in the season, especially in a primetime game, and it's in a game where, again, there's stuff on the line, but not a ton on the line, this is about as good as it gets. Tyler Huntley has come into or at least played Green Bay before, and put up 30 points in a game, and Malik Willis has done unbelievable when tasked with starting or just playing for Green Bay. So despite it being a backup bowl, theoretically, at least again with Lamar Jackson unlikely to play, this still has some juice and some pizzazz to it, especially Saturday night football at Lambeau Field. So excited for this one. I'll be here for about an hour or so. We'll try to get to as many questions as I can throughout the course of this next hour. So get those questions in. I will get to all of your super chats. So if you do have an urgent question you want to get in, can definitely do it that way, but we'll try to get to as many as I can, like I said, over the next hour. So let's get to it right away. The really quick news is they did have 2 elevations. Clayton Thune was obviously one of them. He will wear number 6 now for Green Bay. He did need to change his number. So he goes to number 6. And then Dabney, the tight end, is the other call up. Now, I was expecting Jamin Johnson to be the 3rd, but they did not. With Christian Welch going on IR, they just basically said, we don't need another linebacker. So that was a little bit interesting. I thought Jamin Johnson would be actually activated to the 53, not called up, but actually put on the 53 with Welch's injury, but they didn't utilize that. The other big news here is that there were 3 offensive linemen that were questionable: Zach Tom, Sean Ryan, and Aaron Banks. With no call-ups from the offensive line, that means pretty certainly that at least 2 of those 3 are going to be able to go tonight. Now, we won't know inactives till about 5:30 p.m. Central Time tonight, so about an hour and a half from now. But it does mean, in all likelihood, that at least two of Sean Ryan, Aaron Banks, and Zach Tom should be good to go. Otherwise, I'd be pretty stunned if they didn't pick up or add an additional offensive lineman and only went with 6 or 7. There's no way they were probably going to do that. So that's probably some good news there. If I had to guess, my guess is that Zach Tom does not play and that it's Aaron Banks and Sean Ryan who are recovering from that illness. It has seemed to have been kind of like a 24-hour bug for a lot of these players. So hopefully that's the case and those 2 can go. But those are the noteworthy ones. Again, Dabney at tight end and Clayton Thune at quarterback, the only 2 activations. No other changes in injury designation. No changes with any other illnesses as far as we know of. But that's what we know at this point in time. All right, now let's get to all of your amazing questions. We'll start with Cheesy Matt 93, who came in 11:47 a.m. today to ask this question. Andy, without Parsons, should Green Bay rely on stunts at the line more than they do? I know you can't do it all the time, but we seem to have good success when doing so. Your thoughts, please. Yeah, they're going to do everything. They're going to do twists, stunts, games. They're going to do simulated pressures, actual pressures, blitzes off the edge like we saw last week from the corner and safety positions, double A-gap blitzes, fake double A-gap blitzes, you name it, they're going to do it, and they're going to have to do all of it. I think the honest interpretation of where this defense is at right now, pick any 4 defensive linemen. Pick your favorite 4. Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Enagbare, LVN, Carl Brooks. Let's say that. Let's say those are your 4 best pass rushing defensive linemen at the moment. If you just line up those 4, and assuming that the offensive line only goes with 5 protection, right? They don't even chip or help. I don't feel good about Green Bay getting home with that 4-man rush more often than not. I mean, first of all, you can pick the most dangerous of those 4. Pick who you want, whether you think it's Enagbare, LVN, or Rashawn Gary, and you can double team one of them. And then I don't think any team right now is afraid of Carl Brooks or Kingsley Enagbare or LVN one-on-one. And even if you're not a Rashawn Gary fan and whatever, you're probably still looking at him as the biggest threat. He gets doubled. Everyone else gets one-on-one. And the quarterback's going to have time to throw. If it's just a straight 4-man rush and the offense knows what's coming and they're keeping 5, if they're keeping 6, you're even more at a disadvantage at that point. Then I really don't know how you're getting home. So I just think the truth of it is that they don't have a 4-man rush, regardless of whatever 4 you want to put out there, that can win with any sort of consistency. So everything's on the table, and twists and stunts certainly going to be a huge part of that as well. And GB Gary says, without Parsons, the Packers should rely on witchcraft and voodoo if necessary. Also on the table. Correct, GB Gary. Beast Bumblebee member for 9 freaking months. Appreciate you, Beast. I can't believe there are still people saying Willis is better than Jordan. I've seen multiple people saying that in the lead up, but Malik is a great backup. Don't get me wrong. Is there any chance Willis is back next year? I say this. All right. How do I want to say? No, I'm just going to be a dick about it. I think if somebody says that Malik Willis is better than Jordan Love, they just don't know ball. They just flat out don't know ball. I'm not, like I said, I want to say it maybe nicer than that, and I just don't need to. It's just a flat out truth. And I can tell you, I don't even need to go there. I can tell you wholeheartedly that that's 1,000,000,000% true. I'll just put it that way. So yeah, just ignore that. It's totally fine, by the way, to love Malik Willis and to be excited about Malik Willis starting and to even be excited about the nuance and creativity that Matt LaFleur utilizes when Malik Willis is in the game. All of those things, 1,000,000% fine. 1,000,000% fine. But there is no difference, and Jordan is by far and away the better quarterback. So we'll leave that there. I don't think there's a real legitimate chance that Malik is back next year. And just the sort of pathway you have to take to get to Malik being back, the first thing is that if some team deems him as a legitimate starting quarterback, which is at least per Dan Graziano and just common sense, is not out of the question, right? He's going to take that opportunity to go be a starter, and he's certainly going to get paid more as a starter than he would as a backup. That's number one. Number two is, even if he remains a backup, no team's willing to give him a starting opportunity. There's a really good chance that some other team is more willing to give him more money as a backup than Green Bay would be willing to because of sort of their salary cap situation. So that's number two. And then number three, and maybe even the most, the most likely reason why he goes, is that even if he is a backup for some other team and Green Bay is willing to give him the top backup job, which obviously would be the case, and even if Green Bay is willing to match whatever salary, let's say it's Minnesota or Arizona, or pick your New Orleans, pick your bad quarterback team, and they're the team that's offering it the same amount of money as Green Bay is, even if that's the case, you would rather go play for the team that has an avenue to a starting quarterback job that doesn't have an established, really good starting quarterback already, because in Green Bay, he has no long-term avenue to a starting role because that's Jordan for the foreseeable future. So it would have to take a really crazy set of circumstances where, no other team was really interested. No other team was willing to pay him any sort of significant money. Green Bay came out on top of the money scenario and offered him as much as anybody else. And then, and still gave him the best opportunity to be the best backup. And I just think those things all coming together are extremely, extremely unlikely. Josh, thank you so much for being a brand new YouTube member. Appreciate that, my friend. Thanks so much for signing up. And David gifted 1 Pack-A-Day podcast membership. David, you're the best. Appreciate that, my friend. Let's get back to our questions here. How are people blaming Bisaccia for Romeo muffing the onside kick? Dobbs has great hands, and from what I heard, he did well in practice, but just couldn't haul it in. Don't see what Rich was supposed to do. Yeah, I talked about this pretty much at length after the game. This is ultimately on Romeo. There's no question about it. I will say that Romeo did not look comfortable on that particular play. It was a good bounce that Cairo Santos got. What I would also like to have seen is his, maybe the wherewithal when you're panicked in that situation to bat the ball out of bounds. It did not seem like maybe they went through that as an option, but maybe they did. But the other things on that play which is why I'm not willing to give Rich Bisaccia a pass. So that's where maybe my difference is. I'm not maybe necessarily blaming Rich Bisaccia, but I'm not willing to give him a pass is because Xavier McKinney got completely blown through on the play. Bo Melton didn't make his block on the play. There's no urgency from any other player around it, aside from kind of Keyshawn Nixon to get around the ball just in case things don't go right. There's no urgency. There's not good blocking. I'm not sure players were in their right position to be successful on that play. And if this was a one-off, this was the first time this year in the Rich Bisaccia era or whatever that something catastrophic like this happened, I would be willing to say, yeah, it's Romeo. Like, it's just his fault. No big deal. But when your special teams continues to come up with the worst plays in the worst moments, in multiple losses this year because of those special teams plays, I'm not willing to give Rich Bisaccia a pass for it. So clearly, 1A on that list is Romeo, but I'm not absolving Rich Bisaccia in any sort of significant way because of all those other things I just mentioned. Pack Construction, thank you for not the super chat, but the question. Bears beat our JV team, bitter loss because we still had the game won. When their coaching staff watches the tape and ours does also, I think everyone knows we handled them with a riddled roster. Green Bay went from a situation in which they shouldn't have won to a situation in which they should have won, and then they blew a chance and choked away a game that they should have won and turned it into a game that they shouldn't have won. I think that's probably the best way to put it. So Chicago's not going to be happy with anything that's really on tape through the first, outside of probably some of the stuff in the run game for the first three quarters and 13 minutes of that game. And Green Bay also in that first 3 minutes and 13 minutes is going to, or 3 quarters and 13 minutes is also going to rue some of the opportunities that they missed during that portion of the game. But I think everyone knows that Green Bay had that game won, choked it away, didn't respond to adversity, and ultimately let Chicago win that game and have control of the division at this point in time. So certainly things that both teams are probably very disappointed with coming off of the tape that they watched from that one. Will the Packers primarily be running the ball with a few passes sprinkled in, or do you think that they will air it out a little bit more? I think a big piece of this is, where is Malik Willis's shoulder at? Now, with adrenaline and everything like that at the end of last game, we did see him in overtime rip a pretty good pass to Jaden Reed. Hopefully that's a good sign that maybe it's painful that he still has range of motion to be able to deliver any pass that he wants to deliver. But I think that's going to have to be question one, is just how effective is Willis with that shoulder as a passer? If it's not limited at all, I think we've seen the Malik Willis offense, and we can expect something very similar where there's going to be a lot of running the football with Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, also Malik Willis utilizing his legs in this game. And then, when need be, when a play comes up where he needs to throw the ball, Matt's probably going to have it where somebody's open and he's able to kind of scheme it that way. And Malik Willis will be able to kind of take his opportunities when there. And usually he's been pretty good in those situations. So I think a winning performance probably looks something like 13 of 17 for 185 yards and a touchdown, and maybe, 8 carries for 50 yards and another touchdown or something like that for Malik Willis. I think if you had that type of game, you'd be pretty thrilled. I think if all of a sudden Malik has 30 plus throws in this game, you probably know how this one went. It probably didn't go in your favor, but if he can throw when he needs to, like we've seen him do throughout his entire career in Green Bay so far, I think you still have a very winning formula. But my guess is you'd like to not have him throw it, more than 17, 18 times in this game, if possible. Tyler Straber coming through with the super chat. Thanks so much, Tyler. Dr. McKenzie retiring after 35 years with Green Bay. He's well respected within the NFL. This is a major impact off the field for Green Bay with injuries this year. Will we make changes with strength and conditioning? Dr. McKenzie retiring, it doesn't really affect Green Bay than it does any other team. For any of those major injuries that you go to Dr. McKenzie for, other big-time players would come to Green Bay to have those surgeries and things done by Dr. McKenzie. So it doesn't just affect Green Bay, it affects other teams. If Dr. McKenzie was a doctor at another team through these last 35 years, they would have still players that were hurt in a significant way could have and would have gone to Dr. McKenzie to go still potentially see him. So it's not just a Green Bay thing. There's obviously other doctors who can perform the same surgeries and things like that. Green Bay will obviously have to replace their team doctor and things like that. In fact, I think that's already in place if I remember correctly. But I'm not super familiar with the Packers team doctor depth chart, if I'm being totally honest. But I do think there's a succession plan in place there. And as far as the strength and conditioning staff, they just did that a couple years ago. I'd be pretty stunned if they did something else. To me, there is zero way that I, or anybody, maybe even outside of the organization, can gauge if what Green Bay is doing from a strength and conditioning standpoint has had anything to do with the injuries that they have accumulated. In fact, it certainly doesn't change Jordan Love's concussion. I don't think it really has anything to do with Micah Parsons' torn ACL. Tucker Kraft got kicked on his torn ACL injury. I just don't think that there's anything that correlates at the moment. Devontae Wyatt's was an unfortunate injury. I don't think that has specifically anything to do with the strength. Maybe it does. Maybe it has everything to do with it, but I certainly couldn't look you in the eye and tell you one way or the other whether it did. I don't expect them to make any significant changes there after just doing that a couple of years ago, but we'll see if they do make any of those changes in the offseason. Sam, thank you for the super chat. What's the comp pick situation with Malik Willis if he gets a starting opportunity or a chance to compete against a rookie? Yeah, it just depends what his salary is. So there's a variety of things that go into that. The first is your average per year salary. The second is how much you play during the course of a season. And then the third is if Green Bay signs any players that would counterbalance the comp pick that you would get for that player. It's also noteworthy that you can only get up to 4, which is not something I would normally mention, but you are definitely in a situation where Romeo Doubs, Quay Walker, Rasheed Walker, Malik Willis, Sean Ryan, at minimum, those 5 off the top of my head. Trying to think if there's anyone. Kingsley and Igbare. I think those are kind of the main 6, but there could be others as well. Like those are 6 players who will probably sign contracts that get you comp picks, which means Green Bay could sign a couple players in free agency and still get 4 that would only cancel out 2 of those 6 if all 6 of those in fact do leave. And then you would get the 4 best of those 6 is what would happen. So it just depends on a variety of different factors, but the cost of the contract that he gets in free agency, again, his playing time next year, and if he actually does play and start, and then if Green Bay cancels any of those out and how many players actually get signed away for comp picks for Green Bay, all of that factors into the equation as to whether or not that would actually pay dividends for Green Bay and get them a good comp pick. Go Pack Go. Great work as always, Andy. Alex, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being a member for 13 months. King Kermit, member for 16 months. Don't care. The Packers will win the Super Bowl. Calling it now. I'll get a custom Pack-A-Day jersey for you to sign for me when they do, King. I will gladly do that if that comes to fruition. And I would take it. I hope you're right. I think it's going to be quite the battle. But I think the thing that if you're looking for hope or signs of optimism for making a run at a Super Bowl is I think all 14 teams that get into the playoffs are going to be flawed. I think all of them have reasons why they should be significantly concerned going into any given game. And I think all of them should have optimism going into any given game. Sincerely, if you said Tampa Bay made a run, if you said Green Bay made a run, if you said the Rams were out in the first round, assuming they don't get the bye, if you told me any of that, I don't think there's a dominant team. I don't think there's anyone that feels super confident that, yep, we're the team to beat going into this postseason. I think it's up for grabs. And I think every single one of these playoff games has the ability to go any given way. And hopefully some things that have not fallen in Green Bay's favor so far this year with injuries and drop turnovers and, brutal onside kick and block field goal type stuff. Hopefully some of that starts going into their favor in the playoffs. And if it does, then again, they're going to have a puncher's chance to make a run at this thing. JJS Breaks, thank you for the super chat as well. And I think it's a big if, because I think Green Bay can win a game or 2 in January, we are one and done. Matt LaFleur would have 1 playoff win in the last 5 seasons. The standard has to be higher in Green Bay. Right. I think the standard is higher in Green Bay. I think what you're saying is true. I think you'd have to evaluate all of that, but I don't think it changes anything for the calculus with Matt LaFleur going into next year. But it absolutely puts a ton more pressure on him. I think going into next year is probably what you're looking at. I don't know. It's really interesting because I do think he's going to end up getting a contract extension, and I think it's probably going to end up being a significant one this offseason if I had to guess. If I were just a betting person, no inside information, but we'll basically know off of that if there's pressure on Matt next year. But we'll see. We'll see what that contract extension looks like. We'll see if he gets a contract extension. If he doesn't, then he's very much on the hot seat. If he gets a 1-year extension, then he's very much on the hot seat. If he gets a 4 or 5 year extension, making him one of the highest paid coaches in football, well, then it all doesn't matter, right? But either way, from a external pressure, whether it's an internal pressure, however you want to view it, if it is a one playoff win, during that time frame, it's going to be a question to Matt of, can you make noise in the postseason? Can you win the big one, et cetera? And that will follow around Jordan and Matt until they have, long-term success in the playoffs. It's how this works, is you got to be able to win in the playoffs if you want to have some level of job security or just the kind of respect around the NFL, both again in NFL circles and just from media, fans, et cetera. You want that pressure off of you. Well, go win the big one. Otherwise it's probably going to stay. Got a sneaky good feeling about tonight, Andy. Mike, I love that. Hopefully Green Bay can go out and pick up a win. They're due for a big game. They need a win in a I don't want to say a significant way, but you certainly don't want to lose 3 games in a row at this point of the season. That would make it incredibly tough. Green Bay is down to 2.5 point favorites as of right now. They were up to 4.5 prior to the Jordan Love injury. So the Love injury has definitely knocked them down a couple points. They are, let's see here. So I thought I could see the, here we go. The money line is still pretty significantly on Green Bay, though. -142 for Green Bay, +120 for Baltimore. So still favorites, but not as much as they were prior to the Jordan Love news yesterday. Nathan, thank you so much. Definitely looking forward to the game tonight. I'll be there. After the game, I will be, again, post-game press conference, drive home, and then as soon as I get home, probably around 11:30 p.m. Central Time, we'll come and do the live post-game show right after it. Yeah, rough start to the Chargers D in this one for sure. Listen, if Houston's offense starts to click, and like we've seen it click early in this game, look the heck out, because that Chargers defense is as good as it gets in the NFL right now. And if that offense starts to click for Houston, look the heck out. Look the heck out, because that could be a team that legitimately makes a run in the AFC. LaFleur was excellent in his coaching with the Bears game. If the team needs an energy jolt, renew Goody's and LaFleur's contract right now and make the statement. Also, the hit on Love was on purpose. I don't think it was on purpose, but your mileage may vary. I can't prove it was or wasn't. Could have certainly been on purpose. There was 3 personal foul penalties on quarterbacks in the first half of that game. So take that for what it's worth as well. I think it's more of a bang-bang play. I definitely think he led with the helmet. I definitely think it was a penalty. I definitely think it was a fine. I definitely think when you have 2 personal foul penalties on the quarterback in the first in a game, it's probably, ejection worthy, but it is what it is. That's not what the way the rule states right now. If you celebrate and taunt twice, that's worthy of an ejection, but apparently 2 personal foul penalties on the quarterback is not. You do the math there. But personally, I don't think it was intentional, but tough to say. They're low-key deep at receiver. They must have not caught the Packers flu. Was that the Packers couldn't catch the flu joke there? Not sure what to say about that one, David, but well played if it was, I guess. But yeah, thankfully they do have the depth at receiver. Was reported today that Christian Watson, despite the illness and injury, is going to be good to go in this game, which is just definitely huge for the Packers. Sitting in Tailgate Village, watching this, go Paco, let's go Landon, enjoy it. Have a drink for me and enjoy the game outside at Lambeau Field tonight. Should be, like I said, be a fun one. Yeah, talking about Houston, I think you mean here is their D is legit. Not sure about the offense. Kind of exactly what we said, though, right? If that offense gets clicking, it's going to be very tough to beat that team. They don't overthink it with Malik in. Most teams overthink when their starting quarterback goes down. We change up a few things, but it almost seems smoother at times with him at quarterback. I just think I think the creativity is good. I think obviously Malik's running ability adds a different element to the game. I think things do get, to your point, a little bit simplified with Malik in the game. And I think sometimes that's good. And I do think there is something to, and listen, Matt's got to call the game for the quarterback that's in. And I think Jordan does things differently and better than Malik does. Malik does certain things differently and better than what Jordan does. But I do think there's something too of like, hey, this stuff that really works with Malik Willis, can you can you add a little bit of that wrinkle in with Jordan Love from time to time? Meaning with still Jordan at quarterback, not bringing in Malik Willis, but that offense that you run with Malik is working. It's effective. So I do think there's some stuff that they can take from that, even when Jordan's in, and still utilize it because it works. It works well. So but I do think that Matt does a really good job of putting together that offense, specifically for Malik and some of the stuff that he does really, really well. Matthew Golden breakout game coming tonight. That's been I think said every single week since week 1 pretty much, but hopefully tonight's the night, and he'll get opportunities, I would think, but also expect this to be a game where, again, you want Malik Willis to probably throw 17 times in this game. And, how many, and some of those are probably going to be to, running backs and tight ends and some check down sort of plays and some rollouts and play actions. So if you said like the over under on receiver catches in this game was like 10 or 11, 12, like that's probably what it's around. And so now you're taking 10, 11, 12 passes or receptions and splitting them between Watson, Dobbs, Reed, Wicks, Golden. If you only have 10 of those, 11 or 12, whatever it is, divided by 5 of those guys, it's tough to have a breakout game in that situation. But maybe he can come up with a huge play that he still gets a ton of yards despite not maybe having that reception production in this game. Let's go Packers Nation. We need to get hype even without Love. I think everyone's going to be hyped for this one still. Let's see. My prediction, 23-20 Packers. 23-20 Packers. I absolutely could see the Bears dropping the next 2 games. San Francisco definitely going to be favored in this one. I'm going to double check that. They were, I think, 2.5-point favorites last I checked. 3-point favorites now for San Francisco. And while Detroit doesn't have anything to play for and has looked like absolute garbage as of late, I think they're going to really try to avoid losing their last 4 games and avoid having a losing season. There is a difference to me between 9-8 and 8-9 for Detroit in that one. There is a difference between, having a win at the end of the season to get a little bit of the bad taste out of your mouth and losing 4 in a row and 5 out of 6 to end your season. So I still think Detroit's going to fight and be a little bit pissed off in that game. And while I would probably take Chicago at the moment, I wouldn't rule Detroit out of having an upset bid in that game. Can this D-line hold against Derrick Henry and limit Baltimore's rushing attack? It's literally probably the game in a nutshell, chasing the pack. If they can limit him and hold him in check, then I think you have a real opportunity to win this game. And if that defensive tackle unit especially gets blown off the ball like they did against Chicago at times and can't hold up and you struggle to get Derrick Henry to the ground, then you could be in for a very, very long day. So hopefully Evan Williams can play, and his brand of football coming up from safety can help you against Derrick Henry. And it's going to take everyone, as Matt LaFleur said this week, population to the football. But if they hold Henry in check, I love Green Bay's odds in this one. And if Henry's running for 180 yards, I hate Green Bay's odds in this one. So not to oversimplify it, but I think this is probably the name of the game in this one in the biggest possible facet that you could imagine. LaFleur seems so sure they had a grand plan for tight end. In this game, meaning calling up Dabney, or I'm not, I guess I didn't see that. I'm not sure what you mean, Octave or Octave 9, but yeah, I think they'll be ready with Musgrave and company one way or the other to get through this game. I don't think tight end's going to be, again, the focal point or a huge part of the offense like it was with Tucker Kraft being out, but I still think they've been successful for the most part, especially Musgrave. He's had some moments since the Kraft injury where he's definitely looked the part a little bit more. I still wish there was a little bit more run after the catch there. That it does seem he basically tackles himself the vast majority of the time, but either way, he has been making his presence known and coming up with some big catches. What does it take to get a 5-minute call with you? I don't want to be a Twitter demon though. What does it take to get a 5-minute call with you? Like a phone call? Well, Hall of Fame members for Pack-A-Day do get a 15-minute phone call once per month. So if you want to become a Hall of Fame member, you can sign up for that, and you do get a 15-minute video, FaceTime, phone call, whatever your preference is. Zoom. I really enjoy those calls, by the way. There's multiple people who have those Hall of Fame memberships and set those up, and they're a ton of fun just talking ball for 15 minutes per month. So if that's something you're interested in, David, definitely check out those Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube memberships. We don't know inactives yet, John. We'll know inactives in about an hour. My guess is Oliver is not activated for this game, but he'll be a fun one to keep an eye on. And if he is, and he gets some playing time, that would be a fun player to keep an eye on in this one for sure. Let's get back to our super chats really quick here. All right, Sam, now give me the absolute best case scenario for the Malik Willis comp pick. I'm looking for a subplot to root for. All right, 2020 6 comp picks NFL over the cap. All right. So in a world in which Malik Willis gets the Justin Fields contract, all right, which was what? Justin Fields. He got 2 years, $40 million. All right. So Justin Fields got 2 years, $40 million. That would be, I think, aggressive for Malik Willis. But if we're doing absolute best case scenario, I think absolute best case would be a 2 year, $40 million contract for Malik Willis, similar to what Justin Fields got. Justin Fields got will get Pittsburgh a 4th round comp pick in that scenario. So assuming that Willis plays enough still, and assuming that that he would go for 2 years, $40 million, somewhere in that range, and assuming Green Bay wouldn't counterbalance it with a free agent signing of their own, you're probably looking at a 4th round pick as the absolute best case scenario. I think a 5th round pick is probably a little bit more in the likelihood of something like that. Andy, for me, with all the injuries, I'm just happy we made the playoffs. I know we don't have a 1st round pick, but Micah, Tucker, Wyatt coming back will feel like we have 3 1st rounders. Well, technically, Micah's about 2+ 1st rounders just in and of himself. Wyatt's a 1st round pick. Tucker certainly would be a 1st round pick. So might actually be more than that. But those are 3 big reinforcements. You're going to lose some players for sure. So there is going to be some roster, degradation. You're going to lose. Excuse me. I think I'm okay. You're going to lose Romeo Doubs in all likelihood. Sorry, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. You're going to lose Romeo Doubs, could lose Kingsley Enagbare, could lose Quay Walker. I still think there's a good chance that they bring him back, but you will have some core players that you lose. Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, certainly in question. And so they're going to have to figure out ways with minimal free agent money and with no 1st round pick to make up for some of those players. And the truth of the matter is, as much as we hate to admit it and say it, yes, they will get they'll get Tucker, Wyatt, and Micah back, but there will be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more guys that end up on IR next year. And it's just that big injured reserve roulette wheel again, is which ones does it take? Which players are you missing? And if next year, it's another slate of important players, it could still cost you in a significant way. So I'm hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully Green Bay is due for some good injury luck next year after this year, but you're still going to need to replace some starters, and you're still going to need some injury luck going into next year as well. Whalers, thank you for the super chat. Dobbs is going to finish the season leading almost receiving categories. Get ready for that payday, Dobbs. He earned it. Yeah, I do think he's going to get a payday. I do think it's going to come somewhere else. I think it's going to be very similar to the Shakir contract that Shakir got in Buffalo, probably about $15 million per year. I would guess about 3 years, 45, almost on the dot for Romeo. And I do think that will be elsewhere. I do not think Green Bay gives him that contract. David, thank you for the super chat. Happy holidays, Andy. I only see wins for the Pack. Either we win the division and or the 2 seed, or we get a free bye week unless the Bears win in week 18. It's possible. It's very possible that Green Bay could win both of these games the rest of the season. Very possible that, Chicago loses to San Fran tomorrow. And it's possible that division comes down to Bears and Lions in week 18. I would not be stunned by that at all. But one step at a time, Green Bay's got to take care of business and beat the Ravens tonight to give them the opportunity to do that. If they don't, it's over. They cannot get the 3 or the 2 seed, and they'll be limited with what seeds. They can't get the 5 either. So there might be a small chance of getting the 6 if they lose tonight. Let's see if it wants to come up. All right. So they lose tonight. Ravens win. Yeah. If the Ravens win tonight, they are the 7 seed for sure for the New York Times. So if Green Bay does in fact lose tonight, they are in the 7 seed and they cannot do anything about it to improve it. So next week would legitimately be a preseason game. So of note, if you're looking for scenarios, our postseason scenario after today's game will be very boring if Green Bay does in fact lose this one, because they will just be the 7 seed absolutely no matter what. Colin Oliver to replace Micah in the Cheetah package. Again, if I were betting right now, all right, so let's play this out for a second. I didn't do this on the pregame just because we didn't know. All right, let's see. So there's nobody. So Jordan Love will be inactive. We know that. My guess is Zach Tom's going to be inactive. They called up 2 players from the practice squad, but only have a 52-man roster. So they've got 52 plus 4 or plus 2 is 54. They have to deactivate 6 players. Yeah, because they need to get to 48. So 6 players. And again, we know Love and probably Zach Tom are going to be 2 of them. So they need to deactivate 4 players, probably based on what they've done as of late. Bohanna and Stackhouse are 2 of the other 4. So then you have 2 additional inactives that you need to have, assuming that everyone else is good to go and that illness doesn't strike anybody else. Those options are probably Savion Williams, Colin Oliver, Baron Sorrell. I would think that those are probably your options. I'm assuming based on how they utilized him last week that Brenton Cox is probably ahead. I think Aaron Mosby, based on special teams, is probably very much ahead. So you're probably deactivating 2 out of Savion Williams, Colin Oliver, and Baron Sorrell. So yeah, it just kind of depends on how they view that situation. I would assume that Savion Williams is, I don't know, he's their kick returner, so it might just be Sorrell and Colin Oliver who are inactive. That would give you Gary Enigbari, LVN, Brenton Cox, and Aaron Mosby still at defensive end, which is probably enough. You probably don't need 6. So I think there's a good chance that your 4 healthy actives in this one are Baron Sorrell, Nasir Stackhouse, Quinton Bohanna, and Colin Oliver. But if you wanted Oliver active, then you're probably needing to deactivate Savion Williams. And even if Savion Williams is inactive, you have a choice between your 4th round pick, Baron Sorrell, who's played this year, and 5th round pick, Colin Oliver, who hasn't played this year. So if I were betting, I would assume that Colin Oliver is not active for this one, but I could easily be wrong. We'll have to wait and see. Ranger Ernsey, thank you for the super chat. Randomly found that the documentary No Packers, No Life is streaming for free online. I didn't know anything about it until this morning. Highly recommend it to everyone. Go Pack Go. I've not seen that one, but listen, any Packers stuff is usually good Packers stuff. So I'll have to check that out when I have a chance. Appreciate the heads up, Ranger. Mike Witt, thank you for the super chat. Everyone talking about the Bears, but I would really love another shot at Philly. They don't impress me at all. I'll put it this way. I'm not afraid of any team in the NFC. I think Green Bay can beat any of them, but I personally, I want another shot at Chicago. Not only do I think Green Bay can win that game, but I want to see Green Bay win that game. I want to remind Bears and Bears fans of who is still, the better team of the 2. So I want that game. Obviously, it comes with high stakes. Chicago wins, man, we will not hear the end of it. So there's that aspect of it as well. But I want Chicago, and I want Green Bay to be the ones that ends their season. All right. Not what I wanted. There we go. Let's get to our sleeper picks. Appreciate Sleeper for sponsoring today's show. We've got Sunday football, Bills and Eagles. Should be a really fun game. And if Green Bay does win this game, you do have a significant rooting interest in Buffalo for that one, because if the division is still on the line and Green Bay can win the division, if they win and Philly gets a loss, meaning Green Bay wins the division somehow, they get everything to go their way and Philly gets a loss, they get the 2 seed facing, in all likelihood, Chicago at home. If they get the division and Philly beats Buffalo and Philly goes on to win, I think it's against Washington in week 18. It's a really easy game one way or the other. Then Philly would get the 2, Green Bay would get the 3, and likely have some team, either Seattle, San Francisco, or the Rams coming to Green Bay. So you do have a rooting interest, assuming Green Bay wins tonight in Philly for this one. But I'm going Josh Allen more than 198.5 passing yards, Saquon Barkley with a touchdown, and Dallas Goedert fewer than 36.5 receiving yards. The best part is you can get 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Get a 100% match up to $100 utilizing code PACKADAY. Make sure to use that code. What are you waiting for? Get after it for tonight's game, for tomorrow's slate of action, Monday Night Football as well. Playoffs are coming up. So use that promo code. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. Available in over 25 states nationwide. So check that out as soon as you get a chance. And again, huge thank you to Sleeper for partnering with us on today's show. All right, back to our chats here. Mike Witt, thank you again. My hot take, Brenton Cox Jr. and LVN are starting opposite side of Micah. I think we cut 52, in my opinion. I've talked about this. We talked about it at length with Mike Wall this week, talked about it a little bit with Justice Mosqueda as well. I think LVN gets his fifth-year option picked up. I think Enagbari leaves in free agency, and I think Rashawn Gary ends up being back. But I think all three of those things are very much on the table. If you told me they didn't pick up LVN's fifth-year option, I would understand it. Let him prove it in year 4. And if he does great, then you can always figure out a contract after that, even if you have to pay a little bit more. That's probably what I would do, is I probably would not pick up the fifth-year option on LVN. I probably would let Enagbari walk in free agency, but I want to know the price. If it's like $8 million a year, all right, I probably want Enagbari back at that price. It's like 16, 15, 14, 13, 12 mil per year. I probably let him go get that contract elsewhere. And then for Rashawn Gary, I probably lean towards not bringing him back. I do think that there might be some limited trade value. I'm talking late day 3 at best, but I do think there might be some limited trade value for his contract. If so, I probably take that and look elsewhere and try to upgrade that position. But even if Gary and Enagbari are gone, you do still have Micah, LVN, and then Brenton Cox, who I figure out a way to bring back. And then, you still have Baron Sorrell and Colin Oliver. So you still have some depth there. And then I probably try to bring in one more piece to help me out at defensive end as well. But they're going to have to figure that out and figure out exactly what they want to do at that spot. Their best case is that Rashawn Gary comes back next year, extra motivated, and, maybe drops a few pounds and becomes a little bit more athletic, meaning a little bit more explosive at the point of attack again, and just plays maybe a different brand of football. Let LVN and Brenton Cox be more of the run stuffers and try to remake Rashawn Gary into a pass rusher again. But outside of that, if you don't think he can do that, or you just don't think the value is there, which again, I think is very easy to talk about, then you have to go in a different direction, whether that be recouping a late round pick, or even if you do have to consider releasing him. I do think that's going to be a very interesting offseason decision for Green Bay. All three of those, quite frankly. Gary back at the money. I need a drink. No way. We'll see. I think it will be up for grabs. I think Green Bay is going to want to restructure. I don't think Gary is going to want to. And then the Micah injury could play some factor in that. It shouldn't, but it could. And then again, I don't know what Green Bay ultimately ends up doing there. I do think there's more love and respect for Gary within the organization than there is outside of it, but we'll see. We'll see. I think it's a coin flip at this point in time, whether or not he's back next year. All right. Ravens haven't used Henry as much as they did last year. No, they have not. In fact, the end of last game was a great example of that, where he was having a great game and they just didn't utilize him a ton. We're going to stack the line to stop the run. And is Jackson out? We still have not, at least 4 coming on today, have not seen any official confirmation that Lamar is out. But the expectation is that Tyler Huntley is going to be the starter. And we'll just have to keep an eye at that inactive list an hour and a half before the kickoff today. But no official word, again, that I have seen that Lamar is officially out. But again, expectation is that Tyler Huntley is good to go as the starter in this one. Do I think Oliver will take Christian Welch's spot at least this week? I don't think so. They've even talked about that they have basically utilized him as a designated pass rusher and haven't really done anything with him at like linebacker or things like that. So I don't think so. It's a unique option, Cheesy Matt. It's an interesting concept to think about, but at least based on what they've said, I don't think they view him as that off-ball linebacker. But it is an interesting one with them being a little bit thin at linebacker and not calling up Jamin Johnson. Not something that I specifically thought about, but that would give them one more linebacker. They have Quay, Coop, Hopper, and McDuffie. That's it. If they want that extra player who could theoretically play linebacker in a pinch, well, Colin Oliver does give them that. Mosby can do a little bit of that as well, but Colin Oliver, a little bit more athletic, would maybe give you a better option there. Merry Christmas, Pack-A-Day. Thank you so much, David. Appreciate you a ton. I want to see all 3 phases be as aggressive as possible. I'm game for that, Ray. Watching Higgins catch the touchdown while Matthew Golden isn't even good enough to see the field. Packers got a bust. I will gladly bet you that Matthew Golden does not end up being a bust. I'm very, very confident in that. This is more a victim of early in the season was when he had some wins. Jordan missed him on a couple really big throws, and just kind of being behind a good receiver core that has been here longer in Dontavian Wicks, Wicks, Reed, Watson, Dobbs, etc. Golden's going to be a really good wide receiver in this league. He's going to be a very good wide receiver. I think he probably ends up being like a Brandon Cooks, something like that, where you get some 1,000-yard seasons, things like that. I don't think it's going to be like a Hall of Fame, all-pro level career, but I think something like a Brandon Cooks-esque career is what Matthew Golden will be in for. I have a ton of faith still in Golden being a very good wide receiver with this team. Talked about Rashawn's trade value. I think it's late day 3 at best. Play like the pants are on fire. Absolutely. I think they'll come out ready for this one. Totally excited to see a full Willis start. His story is awesome. The legs add a unique dimension to his game. Love is our franchise QB and always will be. Well, not always, but for the foreseeable future, yes. But we've seen Willis starts. We saw 2 of them last year, and they were both really fun. And hopefully they have that level of play again today with Malik at quarterback. They're going to need it. Would be great if, I guess. Again, I think in a very best case scenario, you're looking at 2 years, 20, which is that 4th round comp pick, which is great. You would gladly take a 4th round comp pick, but I still think you're probably looking at a 5th round comp pick in return, probably at best for Malik. I think people just see the safer and more consistent offensive movement and call it good quarterback play. I think the one thing that we have not seen from Malik Willis yet, where, and hopefully we don't have to see it tonight, is what does it look like when you're down 10 points in the second half? What does it look like when you're down by 14 and have to throw 35, 40 times per game and can't just play within the scheme of the offense? That's something that we haven't really seen or had to see from Malik. And I think that would be a pretty big question that I would have when everyone knows you're going to pass, Malik has to pass. That would be my question. Again, hopefully we don't have to see that tonight, but we haven't really had to, that question hasn't really been asked of Malik Willis yet. So that would be my bigger question for him moving forward. Let's see. Tom Silverstein went through how numerous people botched their assignments on that onside kick. Yep. Yeah, we did as well. Right after we talked about how, actually I think it was the day after, we talked about how multiple players missed their assignments on that one. Yeah, early in the year it wasn't too bad. It was not as bad as you would think, but as of late they just cannot miss against Green Bay. Tom's jersey could be spotted in the official Packers. That has not proven to be a good indicator. There have been players that have had that in the past that were inactive for the game. So don't put too much stock into that. Great work as always. Pretty excited for this game. Go Pack, go. Alex, I'm right there with you. Would you rather have Malik have 100 rushing yards or 200 yards passing? Probably 100 rushing yards. Probably 100 rushing yards. I think if he has to throw a ton in this game, it's probably not a great sign. I think you want to see this running game being very effective. I think they're going to allow him to utilize his legs a little bit more, knowing that, like when Malik came in last week, if Malik gets hurt, there's no other option, right? I know there's the Josh Jacobs, Jaden Reed. You're just toast if that comes to fruition. At least now there's a backup quarterback to you. So I think they'll let him utilize his legs a little bit more. But yeah, I think I'd rather have the 100 yards rushing. Well, if it were efficient and not in a need to be situation, I would rather have the 200 passing yards. If given all things equally, I would rather have the 200 yards passing. I'd rather have him have success through the air. But if you told me what was a better indicator if the Packers won or lost the game, I would say 100 rushing yards is probably a better indicator that they won the game. If Malik wins this game as he's getting a starting job somewhere, I think no matter what, he will get the opportunity to compete with a team going into next year. Whether it's a team that is drafting a quarterback in the first round, like the Raiders or something like that, where he can compete for the starting job, or whether it's a team that's, I don't think it's going to be Minnesota. Malik doesn't quite feel like, that style of quarterback that they like, but a team like that where, yes, you've got a JJ McCarthy, but it's completely unproven and you want somebody to come in and kind of, have the ability to start if need be. I think he'll get a job similar to something like that. Hour and a half before the game's always JR Hale. So always an hour and a half before the game, whether it's Monday night, whether it's a noon, 3:30 or 3:25, 7 o'clock tonight. So 5:30 p.m. Central Time is when we will get those inactives. I never forgot how obnoxious Bears fans are. So, the crazy thing is they wouldn't shut up when they couldn't win a damn game. So of course, when they actually win a game, even if it's fluky as hell, of course they're not going to shut up then. So yeah, I've never forgotten. Go Pack Go. Thanks for being here, New York Cheesehead. I don't care how good Willis is compared to Love. I really enjoy watching him play and succeed. Right there with you, Gooby. Hoping he makes his case for being a quarterback one somewhere, so I get to watch him a lot next year too. That's a great viewpoint on it, and I think you put it perfectly. There's no real reason or need to compare the two, and he's having a really fun career in Green Bay so far, meaning Malik Willis, and he should potentially get an opportunity to go and compete somewhere next year, and good for him. And if so, as long as it's not in the division or playing against Green Bay, I'll certainly be cheering him on. He more than did his job every time when he's been asked to in Green Bay, which has been really fun to watch. Speaking of Quay, what are your thoughts on him? Should Green Bay bring him back? I think this is another one that's a really interesting conversation. And honestly, it probably comes down to Tyron Hopper. If Green Bay feels like Hopper is ready to start, you probably don't need to invest the 15 to 16 million into Quay Walker in this offseason, and you probably let him walk. If you feel like Hopper is nowhere near and that you want Quay back, he's the green dot, he's a team captain, you feel like he teams really well with Edgerrin Cooper, then I think you probably bring him back around that 15 to 16 million per year. This is another one I could see going either way. Goody's been pretty adamant that they've wanted him back, but it hasn't happened yet. They're going to be a little bit tight up against the cap, as we know. Can they sign him? Absolutely. But I think this is another one that's a really interesting offseason discussion. And I would honestly understand it either way, if they felt like Hopper was ready. If they feel Hopper's ready and they can go into next season with, some form of Coop, Hopper, and McDuffie, who is on a really nice contract, then I feel like you can probably do that. You got Jamin Johnson coming back. I'm sure Christian Welch will probably be back as a camp body, and you probably draft a linebacker as well. All right, you can probably get through with that linebacking core. But if you just feel like, hey, not only is Hopper an uncertain, but even if he is somebody we feel are excited about, we'd rather have the depth. You're one Cooper injury away from playing Hopper and McDuffie full time, and maybe you don't feel comfortable with that. I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. Betting today, I say I think he's back, but that again is a really, really interesting conversation that I think could go either way. All right. I think the freak athlete that he is, I think Micah comes back better than ever. Just my opinion. I think he comes back like number 9 did from his ACL. There's a difference between coming back at 260 that Micah is and 210, whatever Watson is. But he's a freak. He'll come back really, really well. And I think he'll attack that as well as anyone's ever attacked, an ACL injury. So I don't have any fear. And we've seen players now like Christian Watson come back off of their ACL and immediately make a huge impact. I don't expect anything different from Micah. He'll get right. He'll be ready to go. I'm excited to see what he looks like. Hopefully opening week next year, but if not, soon thereafter. Just hope Micah doesn't go through what Clay went through. Get that man help. Yeah, I mean, listen, Micah's going to see a lot of double and triple teams no matter what. But either way, they need to get a couple more bodies. But Devontae Wyatt being back will help. Hopefully LVN, can take another step next year. And hopefully either way, that defensive line is better. But you would love a really nice sidekick to him, that's for sure. My opinion on the onside kick is Dobbs has struggled with drops all year. Why they didn't have Golden in that position, I will never know. I talked about that as well. I know there's a lot of faith in Dobbs in that situation. Reed and Golden probably would be my go-tos in that situation. But again, you're putting a rookie in that spot then. At the end of the day, Dobbs needs to come up with it. He didn't, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. You move on. It sounds like they're not going to make any corrections, that Dobbs is still going to be the guy in that situation. And, just hopefully they, don't have to, or just hopefully if that comes to fruition again, Dobbs or Reed or whoever it is ultimately makes that play. All right, friends, I'm going to get out of here relatively quick. 87 should not be on the punt return. They just don't have a player who should be on the punt return is the problem. That's ultimately the big problem. Given how crazy traffic is around Lambeau on game day, what are your secret tips for entering and exiting the stadium area? Yeah, there's no easy way like I know where to park. And I don't know the names of the streets or anything like that, but it just depends where I'm coming from. But when I was coming to Pier, when I lived in De Pere, I knew a place to park on the south side on the streets where it was kind of a little bit more of a walk, but I could get out, like I could get to my car and get out and kind of beat traffic and beat everyone out of there, which was great. I knew the same thing when I lived more on the north side, and a place to park on the street there where I knew exactly where to park, get in, get out, and not have any issues. Now I have a parking pass right next to the stadium, but I do have sort of a secret way of going that gets me in there really quick. And then on the way out, I do have to, that's why kind of going to the press conference afterwards helps, because that gives about 45 minutes ish for traffic to clear out a little bit. And then, just kind of take it from there and get out relatively quick from there. But just depends on where you're at and where you want to park. Yeah, parking blocks away and walking is usually your best friend. New background is coming along nicely. Had a couple meetings already, and we've got plans in place. Have to finalize the final details, which should happen this upcoming week. And then from there, it just is a time when the right people can come in and do the right things that they need to do. I'll just put it that way. But I am insanely excited about this. Like smiling ear to ear, totally full of glee. It's going to look awesome. And I cannot wait. Cannot wait. So we rest Josh Jacobs for the next 2 weeks to get the swelling down and other injuries right. I want to fresh Josh for the playoffs. Josh is going to play tonight. I think it's all hands on deck tonight. I think they're going to continue. They need to get a win here. I just think to get back to winning to some extent, and they still have the NFC North to play for. So I expect a kind of an all hands on deck approach tonight. Jacobs was not on the injury list as questionable or anything like that, so he's better already. But if they win today and Chicago loses tomorrow, then you can bet they're going for the win next week. And it's basically already been reported from Tom Pelissero, where if Green Bay either loses today or if Chicago wins tomorrow, it's going to be a situation in which they're resting players next week. So we just have to kind of wait to see what happens today and tomorrow, and then they have that ability to make the decision next week. Although I would say that they probably are a little bit more cautious with any fringe injuries next week, one way or the other. And I would expect Zach Tom to be a little bit extra cautious with today as well. And my guess is Tom doesn't go on this one. I mean, I don't think that they bring McCole Hardman back. They had the opportunity to keep him from the beginning and had no interest, So no, I don't think there's any chance that they bring him back at this point. My understanding is that it's pronounced Thune. See if I can find it on Packers.com. Team Clayton Thune. Oh, they don't have it on the see if, because usually when they send it via email. Give me 1 second, see if I can verify this. They didn't put it in this one. One more second. See if I can. Maybe it's not. They, in the initial signing of Clayton Thune, usually they put the pronunciation. So like when they signed Dalton Cooper, Clayton Thune, and Josh Wiley. And like with Wiley, they put Y-Lee. So they usually put the enunciations of it on their press releases, and they didn't do it for Thune. So maybe it is just Thune. It is pronounced Thune, like moon, not Thune with a TH sound. All right, my bad. The more you know. We did it together. We learned together. So thank you for asking me about it. I thought I've heard multiple people say it Thune. So my apologies. It is Thune. We win the toss, Andy. Do we take the ball or do we defer? I think we take the ball. I could be wrong, but I don't know. No, we probably defer. I would love to take the ball, but I bet they defer. It is Tune. We're confirmed. Lead us to victory, and we learn his name. There you go. Say we win today and Bears beat the Niners, so the division goes to Chicago. Wouldn't that mean that we could still pass the 49ers with another? Yeah, there's ways to get the 6th seed and things like that. I just don't think Green Bay, I don't think you're going to care at that point. Honestly, the difference between the 7 and the 6. And in fact, I think you'd probably rather be the 7 if Chicago stays in the 7 or in the 2. I think you'd probably rather be the 7. So I just don't, I think they will take the ability to rest players in that situation. Malik should have won in Chicago and will win tonight. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in free agency this offseason. Hope he gets a good contract and team to go to. He deserves it. A real one right there. He's been awesome. He's been awesome. Mike says 27-20 Packers. I would gladly take that. I think, again, I have 23-20 Packers. So we'll see. Hope for a good win tonight and go Pack go. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate you, Pokey. Thanks for being here. I'm going to get out of here. I do have to get ready for the game, get over to Lambeau Field. We've got about a little less than 2 hours, but it's probably honestly about 2 hours until kickoff, if we're being honest. Inactives come out here in 28 minutes, so keep an eye out for that. I will see you guys immediately following the game in a live post-game show. So again, give me about an hour and a half-ish to get after the game is done. I would assume 11:30 p.m. Central. I know it's a little bit late, but 11:30 p.m. Central is probably when I'm going to be here. As soon as I can get home, I'll get started right away on the live. Hopefully we're talking about a fun Packers victory. I'll be back tomorrow for a post-game show. Tomorrow on the actual podcast, and then tomorrow will be our members only Q&A. So if you haven't signed up to become a member yet, make sure to do that. Members Q&A will be tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time. I'll see you guys there for that as well. Enjoy the game, everyone. See you for the post game. Until next time. And as always, go Pack Go.